I've had it. Enough. You know what?
Hello everybody, my name is Amanda. Welcome back to my beauty entertainment channel. If this is your first time here, absolutely. So if you would like to follow me on social media, here's my Instagram and my Twitter. Go have fun on there. And while you're here, you can check out some of my recent videos. Before this, I talked about my favorite movies, music, and TV shows of 2022. And then before that, I did a video on the sex life of college girls season 2. And then before that, I talked about Blood and Water season 3. So today's video, we're doing another like wrap up of the year video, and I'm gonna be doing my makeup during it. I'm gonna be talking about my favorite books and makeup releases of 2022. Kind of like not related, but I wanted to film one video. So I'm gonna be doing my makeup with my favorite makeup products and then talking about my favorite books this year. I'm just gonna be ranking all the books I read this year that I didn't read. Like I reread books often, so I'm like taking those out of it, but I'm talking about the other books that I read. But for like products and stuff, I wanna first start off with my favorite skincare products of the year, because I started taking my skincare slightly more seriously. But anyways, the first thing I want to discuss, and if there's one product rec you listen to in this whole video, have it be this one. This is what is this actually called? This is the Topicals Ingrown Tonic Roller. This is like for ingrown hairs. I have really bad ingrown hairs. I don't have ingrown hairs anymore, is what I'm here to say. This product, like, I don't know, it just works. I don't know what else to say. It's convenient because it's a roller. I use it in like my bikini area and underneath my arms. So I would get ingrowns under my arms too. Best thing ever. I use it every day. It's amazing. That's all I have to say. And it works. This really works. I used to have terrible ingrowns. Terrible. Painful. Keyword there is painful ingrowns. I don't have any more with this. Then next favorite thing that I bought was this Shiseido clear sunscreen stick, because you know the girls tell me I'm supposed to use sunscreen all the time, which I agree with. They're not wrong, but liquid is so inconvenient to reapply, but this is not. It's a stick, so it's easy. There's absolutely no cast. It's literally translucent. It's very convenient to clean. You just take a paper towel, clean the top. It's very, like, this is made for people who don't have time, not time or like effort or energy. Amazing sunscreen. I use it every single day. Last skincare thing is not everything, but a lot of things from Corrix or COSRX, whatever. The Snail Mucin is in my bathroom and I'm not bringing that in here, but I really like that. But this moisturizer is the best moisturizer I have ever used. Before this, I used to use the Tatcha like dewy skin one because that was really hydrating. This is just as hydrating, if not more, and costs like not as much as that one. So I really enjoy this. Those are my 3 top favorite skincare products of the year. So now I'm gonna do my makeup. I'm gonna start doing my makeup. I'm gonna start with primer. I always use this, but this other Milk primer came out, I think this year. I'm actually not really sure, but this is the mattifying version. I'm not gonna put it on right now because I'm not going anywhere, but if I were to leave my house, I would use this with this, but I'm not going to. So anyways, so we're talking about books. I'm gonna be ranking all the books that I read this year. So we have to start worst to best. Sorry. So I'm gonna be talking negatively for the first, actually, I'm only gonna be talking negatively for the first 2 books. Every other book I read this year, I did enjoy to some level. I'm just gonna be ranking them. So the first 2 books I'm talking about, I did not like. So I read, how many books I read this year? I read like 40 books this year, but I'm only gonna be ranking 24 of them. For whatever reasons. I had a reason and now I'm forgetting. So at number 24, we have Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. I gave this a 2 on Goodreads, and that is the lowest I've ever ranked a book on Goodreads because I'm not finishing a book if it's not giving me 3+ 5s. This book was for my Patreon book club, so I had to finish it. But if it was just for me, it would have been a very strong DNF. When I say incredibly strong DNF, but I finished it because I had an obligation. Just not good. Just awful, dry, boring, trying to be dramatic but not having the panache. Two terrible personalities. Nearly every character was unlikable, and like sometimes it's like, well, like the plot, like you don't really need you to like the characters. It wasn't even anything that I could like avoid listening to. It was just unbearable. There's a like trigger warning and slight spoiler, like poorly written in like suicide attempt that I would just made me uncomfortable, and not in the way that like something like that is supposed to, in a way that I'm like, do you like, was this doesn't feel very intentional to me. Okay, I should have disclaimed, these are all my opinions. If you disagree, you're an adult, or maybe you're not, but like act like one. Just opinions and stuff, right? And then this is no shade, and I wrote it in my Goodreads review, so it's already been out there on the internet, so I can say it again. It feels like it was written to be a white woman's introduction to the black woman, and it feels like it was written for that purpose and with that in mind. There were things that I was like, why would this need to be explained if this is for other, because it's about, there's black women that are characters in the book. Why would this need to be written and or explained if black women are the audience? Just my thoughts. Not everyone has to agree, but it felt like a white woman's introduction to the black woman life experience, and I have no interest in reading encyclopedias of my own life. So, and it's not even written well. Like, I would think this would be a poor choice even for that purpose. So that's besides the point. So I gave that a 2, and that is number 24 on my list. And now at number 23, we have a book I read at the very beginning of the year, which was called Honey Girl. I gave this a 3. I think I gave it like a 4, and then a couple months later, for some reason, the book came back into my brain. I'm forgetting words. Back into my brain. And I went back and I lowered it to a 3. And I'm being generous with the 3 because I liked the idea. I liked what it was trying to do. I just feel like, because I know her, okay, I'm gonna, like, now we're getting into spoilers. I know, actually this is the beginning of the books, maybe not. I know that her like getting like randomly married to that girl is part of her like trying to unlearn like always being the perfect whatever, and like trying to like grow up and like do things that are not meant for her to do. I just thought the romance subplot of this book was very flat. I thought it was very flat. I found old girl, the other girl, unlikable. She also called her some version of a bald-headed bitch, which, what am I reading? What do you mean you're gonna have her love interest called her a bald-headed bitch and I'm supposed to keep reading this? Yeah, just terrible. I tried when I first read it, I was like, I didn't like that and I didn't like the romance, but I liked the other parts of her trying to find like perfectionist, trying to find herself, always been a good girl, quote unquote. But I read a book that I'll talk about much later that did a similar thing with a younger age group that was 10 eons, centuries better than this. So this was no, and it was no enough that I had to think back months later and go back and reduce my ratings of the book. My apologies. Little break. My favorite foundation release of this year is the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. In second place is the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin. I also talked about the Yummy Skin Balm, the one that's in like a powder compact. I didn't bring that here because it's not my like favorite, more so for like light makeup wearing days, but I don't do those anymore. I'm either wearing makeup or I'm not. But if like you're somebody who does like the everyday makeup, like in between, where you're maybe not putting on like a liquid foundation or don't want to, that would be better for you. But if you want a foundation from Danessa Myricks that is like full glam and looks amazing, this one. I just need Danessa. We need some in-between shades. We need some in-between shades, please. Really, Amanda? Preferably between 20W and 21N. something in between for us. But the best foundation for launch this year, it wasn't even really a competition. I didn't really have to think about this too long. It's her, and you're gonna see why when I put it on. Anyways, back to books. There's a barrier here. Those two, every book that I read after this, I at least enjoyed to some degree. Some obviously more than others, but every book that I'm going to talk about now was an enjoyable read at most points. So first up at number 22, we have the book Blood Like Magic, which I gave a 3 on Goodreads. I gave it a 3 because I liked it, reading it. I did enjoy it, and I liked the lore. I liked the description. I liked like learning more about what was in the world, but the thing is, I liked that more than the plot that was going on and what was actually supposed to be happening in the book. I was more interested in the world than anything else, and that to me, I was like, there's a bit of a disconnect here. The plot was pretty like fine, like fair, but not excellent. And I think with how much I think it was almost like too much was happening with the world. It just made the plot was not well done, in my personal opinion. I don't remember names. I'm not good with names in books. I can love a book and not remember the main character's name at all. But justice for the girl who got trapped in the house. Justice for her, because she didn't deserve that. She was just trying to live her life and leave the clutches of her family. And one of her siblings said, "I'm gonna keep you trapped in the house for the rest of your life." She did not deserve that. So justice for her. She's the only one I remember. One of the only ones I remember from this book, months later. And I gave that a 3 stars. Fair. That's usually the lowest I'll ever give a book. And the reason is because I do not read books I'm not enjoying. If I'm reading it and I DNF like it's nobody's problem. So if I'm reading a book and it's giving DNF, I'm not finishing it. And now I'm using my favorite concealer launch of the year, which was pretty late in the game. I used it in I think in the Blood and Water video. I need to put more foundation down here. But it is the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Radiant Concealer. I didn't think I would like it at first because not a lot of product comes out, and I don't like that about concealer. My least, like the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer, I hate because of the application. But the finish of this concealer is kind of beautiful. It's kind of beautiful and spectacular. So I leave it alone. I was looking for more foundation. Anyways, back to books. So now at number 21, I have Dead Dead Girls. I read at the very, very start of this year. Hello? This foundation doesn't want to come out. Anyways, I enjoyed Dead Dead Girls. It was just, the reason why it is this low, because I liked it, is because it was not a standout. I liked what the author was thinking, where it was going, but I was like, I think the book needed a little bit more workshopping before it was released. But I think that hopefully, and I think it can, because I know there's a sequel coming, I think that can be and hopefully will be like worked out in the sequel. So that's why I'm putting it like higher, because I remember I liked reading it and I liked like the stories happening, but it wasn't there yet. I believe the sequel, I hope, and I do believe the sequel will get us there, but as of right now, it is in the number 20 spot, unfortunately. But I think, because there are good bones there, I think by the next book, we should really be able to get there. For contour, I have not used a different product. I think I bought this last year. I don't use anything else. Before this, I used the Fenty Matchstick in like Espresso, which I liked, but this is like a better formulation. So I have nothing to share for the contour portion of the programming. But anyways, in number 20, we have this book that I read called The Inheritance Games. I'm sure you've seen the cover of this book because the cover is stunning, and that is why I picked it up. So I gave this a 3. I gave it a 3 because when I was reading the book, let me tell you, I was ready to give it a 4. I was ready to give it a 4. I liked it. I enjoyed where we were going. I liked the little build up, liked their banter, like the premise. The ending, I won't say it, but the reveal at the end as to like what this all is about and how the relation between all of them, poo. Boo, 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 boo. It made it immediately fall down to 3.5 stars. Yeah, I did give it 3.5. Made it fall down to 3.5 stars because don't waste my time. I felt like my time was wasted reading this book, and it was really upsetting because I thought I was judging a book well by its cover. I was not. I felt like my time was being, it was such a good build up to bullshit. It was such a good, and I'm telling you, I was sitting there because I read this on vacation. So it was the perfect scenario. I was reading it in a hammock. I was reading this book and another book, which saved the vacation reading element, saved it for me. I was reading this in a hammock. Builds up to bullshit. I was about to buy the second book. Let me know if the second book is less build up to bullshit, because I was interested in what was going on, but they lost me. They lost me completely. Gorgeous cover, beautiful, breathtaking cover, but don't ever waste my time again. Don't ever waste my time and space on my Kindle ever again. So that's why it's at number 20. Now we have number 19. I read Always Only You, which is part of the, how do you pronounce her last name? Bergman? Sorry. Part of that like series. I have not read a single other book in the series. I read this book for one reason. So I'm not sure about the rest of the series. I ranked this at number 19 because on Goodreads, I'm pretty sure I gave this like a 3. I'm pretty sure I gave this a 3 because, and there's a reason why. The characters, I liked the characters like 10,000 times more than anything actually happening in the book whatsoever. The plot wasn't bad, it just, because I tried to read this book at the very start of this year and I thought it was too corny. I got 20 pages in, I think, and I was like, this is the corniest thing I got one chapter in, so probably not 20 pages, and I was like, no. Then later I saw like another like community I'm in on TikTok like talking about it again, and I was like, did I read the wrong book? Because these people, they seem to really like it. It was a book, what are they called? Book talker that I really liked the opinion of and usually agree with, and she was like raving about this book, and I was like, let me give it one more chance, one more. So I read it and I was like, it was not as corny as I thought it was. Now it was. It was pretty corny, but not as bad as I thought it was, and I'm glad that I gave it a chance because it introduced me to Frankie, my Afro-Italian queen. So I have to be a little bit grateful for that. I love her character. I love everything about her character. The plot of the book is very like typical like romance book. Nothing really like out there, but like really good depictions of like chronic pain, like good descriptions of, I like this book's like representation of autism. I really like that. I love, my favorite part of the whole book was, okay, his sister's name, is it her name Zig? Is that actually her name? Or am I thinking of that guy from Degrassi? Anyways, her little like bonding moment with that girl, I loved that. I thought that was so cute. My favorite scene in the entire book, and I thought it was well written. Well, I thought it was decently written. Like the characters really sold this book for me and let me give it the 3.5. Like Frankie is doing a lot of lifting to get me to the 3.5, but I really did like, I liked the book. It was a fair book, but Frankie is, this is my sister, so I have to put it up a little bit higher, I had to, solidarity. Then at number 18, I have, okay, before I talk about number 18, I'm gonna talk about my favorite powder. Let's put this down. I brought my makeup here in a like makeup case instead of how I usually bring it, so I have to get the makeup out in a weird way. Favorite powder this year, been using the Laura Mercier honey powder, regular translucent powder and honey since that came out. I think that was my favorite of last year. So this year they came out with a blur version of their powder, translucent honey. It's the Ultra Blur. Now, I said this in my last video, it has glitter in it. I don't know if it's like glitter or just like sparkle particles, but they are there and you can see them if like I hold the mirror up to my face right here, like this, you're gonna see them. But I think it's what gives it its blur. It blurs your skin, because usually when we, especially in like 2017, 18, 19, every damn thing was a blur thing, and those did not work for me. The powders did not work for me. I didn't know what you guys were talking about. Usually it was like, because I remember there were glitter in those too, but it was way too much. This is a tasteful amount of glitter, if we want to use the dating femininity coach's favorite words. This is a tasteful introduction of glitter, and it actually does blur your face. It does a really good job. I was pleasantly surprised by that. So that's my favorite setting powder of this year. So in number 18, we have the Bride Test, which I gave a 4. Truthfully, I don't remember much of this book. So I read it, I think, or like, it was earlier this year, but I don't remember when. It took me 80 pages to get into the book. And it was different for me than the Kiss Coaching, which I read right before. I was like, oh, this is different. It's a different book. It feels different. But once I did get into the book, I did like it. I just like it the least out of the 3 of the series, which I read all 3 of them this year. But I do want to go back and reread. I reread the first one twice I read the first one twice this year, but I haven't reread the last 2 because I haven't had time. But I want to reread this book because I remember not getting it for those 80 pages, and then just had the overall like aura of this book felt different. Even the writing to me like felt like a slightly different, just like if the writing were to be a color, felt like a different color in this book than the other books. Does not mean that it was bad, but it just meant that it was different. And I think when I was reading it, I was doing a little too much comparisons to the first book, which I don't think was very fair. But so I want to reread it because I want to read it from a different perspective. But I did still like it even doing that. So I'm like, maybe I'll like it better on an actual reread, but we will see. That's for the future. But I like that book, gave it a 4, solid book. Next up at number 17, we have White Smoke. White Smoke I gave a 4, read pretty recently with my book club. Tiffany D. Jackson came in this year and decided to fuck my year up. She just be writing the freakiest stuff that is absolutely captivating. But freaky. Absolutely freaky. I don't know if I like the premise, but I like the book, and I like the way she writes. I like how you're there with the characters, feeling the intensity of the exact moment. You don't have to guess for anything, because she's gonna make you feel the panic that they feel. So I really did enjoy that book. Felt teased by the ending, so that's why I have her lower than a different book that I read by Tiffany this year. That's why I have her on the bottom. We needed 50 more pages. We did. Don't lie, we did. Like, we needed 50 more pages. If we had gotten 50 more pages, might have ranked a little bit higher, but we didn't. And I felt like the story wasn't over. The arc wasn't done. I needed 50 more pages. But it's a solid 4. Then at number 16, I have My Sister the Serial Killer, which I read at the very start of this year. I gave it a 5. Also, for me in rankings, like, take my like ranking of them in terms of favorites more seriously than my Goodreads like star ranking, because I do sometimes like books that are like, you might think like I like the books that are 5s obviously the most, but you'll see some 4s over 5s, and I'll explain why. But like in this case, My Sister is a 5. Where do you even begin? I don't even know how to explain this book or talk about this book with someone who has not read it, because it leaves you, it's confusing. It's not that confusing, but like it's confusing, but it's a good confusion. It's like I should feel like I'm intrigued. It was intriguing. It was different. I have never ever, I've read several books this year that were in a style that I had never ever even come close to reading before in my life, and this was one of them. I have never read a book like this, and that's why it was almost like a shock. And that's why I liked it so much, because I had absolutely no idea what to expect whatsoever. But I did enjoy it, and it wasn't funny, but like some of it was funny, and it was interesting seeing how the sisters' relationship played out. I think it's a book to read if you want to, like, if you've been reading the same type of book for a while and you want to just literally flip everything on its head. A good choice, a fairly good choice. I'm using the Charlotte Tilbury, this powder that everyone uses. I'm pretty sure I bought this last year, so I don't think it counts for my favorite releases of this year, but I have started doing the pressed powder before loose powder thing that I saw on TikTok. So that's my new technique for the year. We're changing some things. Okay. At number 15, I have Sunny Disposition. Sunny spelled S-U-N-N-Y. That's how Sunny spelled. But it's Sunny with a chance, not Sunny the name. Sunny like sun, E-disposition. Gave it a 4. So the next 3 books that I'm talking about are all romances, and they all kind of fall into the same-ish category of like, I have some issues, but I could and absolutely did ignore them all for the feeling of the book. That's where these next 3 kind of fit for me. Sunny Disposition is ranked last out of the 3 of them because it's too short. The thing is, it was too short, and I can be upset about that, but I can also recognize that there was nothing else really to the story. I wish we could have seen more of her interests, like we saw like some of her like gaming stuff and things like that, but I feel like we got a lot more hockey than we got of like her personally and her actual interest. I read 2 hockey romances this year, so I had a lot of great practice in suspending reality and ignoring the likely actual held beliefs of that demographic. So I should get a prize for that, for best dissociation of 2022. The book was short, but I enjoyed every single one that I read this book twice because I don't understand why hockey romances are written so well, and what about it makes it so well when we actually look at like hockey and who hockey players are and how they actually act. Where is this disconnect coming from? Because I'm not saying stop. Keep writing the romances, but it's so interesting how there's a very clear disconnect. But anyway, back to the book. I just wish we could have gotten a little bit more about her and her interests instead of his interests. I really like Grumpy. Oh, the reason, back to Always Only You. The reason I started to read that book, one of the reasons, is because it's Grumpy Sunshine, but the girl's grumpy. I like Grumpy Sunshine when the man is grumpy is a hit or miss. I liked this book, Sunny Disposition, because it was Grumpy Sunshine, the man was the grump. Usually I stay away from those because I don't know what men have to be so angry about. I do. The patriarchy hurts them too. But I don't want to read about you groaning and groaning and never having joy in your life ever. Calm down. Calm down. And usually they're not grumpy, they're usually angry and bullies. So I'm not reading that. He was not in this book, so I let it go. And I actually liked like his little figuring out like how injury impacts his life, how forgetting things impacts his life, how he's able to like heal, and how healing can look different. And to his family it looked one way, but to him it looked a different way. I did enjoy reading that, and I thought I wasn't gonna like any of his storylines whatsoever, but I did. Forgot to put on blush before putting on powder. I got too far into the powder, but it is okay. I have nothing new for blush. Rare Beauty is still making the best blushes on the planet, so I don't really know what to say about that. That's probably not going to change anytime soon, but if we could get an orange in, I don't care what formula, dewy, matte, whichever you're feeling this day, I would really, 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 really appreciate it. Like a bright orange, just the same thing, just a bright, bright, bright orange. Please, I'm begging you. So no real change on the blush front, literally whatsoever. Anyways, at number 14, we have Dating Dr. Dill, which I gave a 5. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was really cute. I thought it was funny. This is the other book I read on vacation, which saved my ass from the first book I read, which wasted my time. So I loved this book. I had a lot of fun reading it. I liked the premise behind it. Here's my thing, again, with this book too. I love the book. I gave it a 5. Every single issue that a lot of people have with this book and the next book, I don't disagree with. The absolute bullshit he said to her at the beginning, which started this whole thing, I don't believe he apologized enough. I know he, at the very minimum, he embarrassed her publicly and apologized publicly, but it wasn't enough for me personally. It was not enough for me personally, and I'm pretty sure she had to deal with some of his bullshit ass relatives. It wasn't enough for me personally. I feel like he needed to give a little bit more for saying those absolutely uncalled for things at the beginning. But I guess I was supposed to take the public embarrassment, public apology. And I really enjoy this, but I put it a little bit lower than some other romance books I read because of that component, and because of the terrible Taylor Swift playlist. Not because of Taylor Swift, but when books use Taylor Swift and you put her music in the book, they pick the worst songs. Be so fucking for real right now. Why are you, it's every single time a book wants, and I'm like, dude, it's fine. I don't always like references to pop culture and books, but if you want to, fine. Pick better songs. She has more songs than me. She has more songs. I'm not a Reputation liker. They love to use songs from Reputation and books with Taylor Swift playlists. I've had enough. I would have liked if I had been contacted, we could have put some better songs in the actual playlist, but I wasn't contacted, so it's too little too late. But that's why I have the book. I'm a realistic person. I had so much fun reading. I tore through this book, but I have to be honest that the absolute bullshit he said to her at the beginning and the terrible Swift playlist, you gotta go a little bit lower. Then at number 13, I had Icebreaker. I read Icebreaker this year. I gave it a 5. I gave it a 5 because I loved it. It was really, it wasn't super long, but it was pretty long for a romance book like that. It's not part of the Addicted series. I loved it despite every single problem, and yes, I recognize every single problem. It was corny. It was corny, but it's a romance book. I thought we lived for corn. That's my thing with these usually very white book talk. Back to Dating Dr. Dill. This is why you should never ever 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 go on Goodreads and look at the reviews of a book with a lead that's not white, because they weren't talking about why was he so mean to her and he didn't apologize enough at the end. They were talking about their relationship with their parents is totally unrealistic. Why would you be in your 20s and still care what your parents think? I think her mother being that overbearing is unrealistic. I would like Goodreads to have a divide. I would like the opportunity to not have to see reviews from a certain demographic. I never want to see stuff like that again. And then if they weren't saying that, they were saying, I just really couldn't relate. I couldn't relate because I don't have, because they'll say it in a way that they think they're being like concealed about it, or saying it for all the right reasons. Like, I don't experience the same levels of discrimination, so I can't relate to the book, because then they'll put a bunch of word salad together, a bunch of buzzwords they learn on the internet, and that's their reason why they can't relate to the book. And I'm like, just say you're a bigot and don't want to read books about people who are not white. Let's save ourselves some characters. Let's save Goodreads some fucking space. Let's save some space for some other reviewers, and just say, I don't want to read books about people who don't look like me because I have no imagination. Let's just cut to the chase, because you guys can relate to dragons, to monsters. I know the books y'all be reading. I see it. Monsters. You can relate to fairies. You can relate to rocks. You can relate to the craziest stuff I've ever heard. But a South Asian woman, you can't. Okay. So I should never, ever, ever go on Goodreads ever again to see reviews, and I recommend you don't either. Bronzer, it is the same bronzer. I have no updates. I don't think there'll be a better bronzer than this Fenty one in Mocha Mami. Don't think so. But back to Icebreaker. I live for the corniness. I thought it was good. I am Nate Sassy Hive. I think they're cute. You know, issues, many. We can ignore them. We're already reading a hockey romance book. Suspend reality for a little bit longer. It wouldn't be that far of a stretch. Like, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch. Again, terrible Taylor Swift song chosen. Again, a bad song chosen. It's not her. Pick a better song. The discography is endless. Pick a better song. Anyways, but can someone look into and figure out what is it about fictional hockey players? Why that sport? What is it about that sport that makes their fictional characters phenomenal? I read 3 hockey romances this year. I've never done that before. Can anybody explain that to me? I would really like it explained, because I'm genuinely curious. Oh, I am ranking 25 books. I have a tie. I was sitting here this whole time since the very beginning, like, I did not. Anyways, it's totally fine. But that's what's been going through my brain this entire time. I loved Icebreaker. Sue me. Sue me, sue me, sue me, sue me. At number 12, we have the book The City We Became, which I gave a 4. Another type of book I have never read, another like style of book I've never read before. I was quite confused in, like, it wasn't the first chapter, but the first like prologue part. I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. I was panicking. I was like, am I unable to read? Have I lost that skill? But once you understand what's happening, the book is phenomenal. New York, the way this book discusses New York and discusses what's currently happening in New York and what's happening in New York, but in other ways how it describes like the culture, the way people talk, the way people feel, was amazing. I really enjoyed reading it. Great tale talking about gentrification. So like in the book, each like I guess this is a spoiler, like technically, but each borough is a person. Each borough is like represented by a person, and you should read the book to see who represents Staten Island. You should just read. It's who you think it is. She's who you think she is. But that was funny, and I laughed when that happened, because when we met her, I was like, I know who you are. Nobody else can tell you who you are but me. I know who you are. I thought it was hilarious. Very well done. Very on the nose. Very exact. Well written book. A book that forced me to think. Because I was sitting there, I was like, am I not understanding what's going on? Reread. But I got it. Fantastic job. Then at number 11, we have Monday's Not Coming. Where do you want me to start? Where would you like me to start? Where would you like me to start with Monday's Not Coming? I am a naive person and I hope for the best, so big spoiler, I thought Monday was gonna come back. I did. Am I a fool? I am a bit of a fool. I am a bit of a fool because I thought she was gonna come back. I thought we were gonna find her, gonna have a cute little reunion. I need to stop watching Disney Channel because that's not how life works. So this book took me for a loop, but it wasn't even that. You know what I'm talking about at the end. I don't want to say this part. That reveal, you know, books cause a lot of panic in my life, so does TV, but the way that a book with an author who just wants to create chaos in my life, what that'll do to my blood pressure, that's out of this world. And she did a really good job. Tiffany G. Jackson, you kind of ate that. This lip liner is not new. This is an Ulta Beauty one. It's a gel liner in mink, or is it in, yeah, mink. It's an eyeliner. This is literally an eyeliner. This one, yeah, these are eyeliners to get the best browns. I usually go eyeliners, but this is not very new. But the next product I'm going to show. So I have two favorite lip products of 2022. Let me get them out. The first one is what I recently used, the Summer Fridays lip whatever. This is a favorite because of the color. The color of this is phenomenal. I still don't like this pouty thing. I still don't like it. I'm gonna use it because I really like the color and the way this looks on my lips. I prefer a wand. I'm sorry. I prefer a wand, but this color, spectacular. Amazing product, good color. If you like that whole like squeezy tube thing, probably a little bit more convenient, but it's not my favorite application. Then of course we have, this is not new, the Fenty Heat lip gloss is amazing. This is Hot Chocolate Heat right here. I only really use Heat. I have not used the original Fenty Gloss Bomb in forever. I think this is their best gloss. The plumping thing is not, I mean, it's not really doing, like, it's not gonna do like crazy amounts, but you do feel it. The little tingling part is not bad compared to other. I've used the Too Faced, I have used the Too Faced lip plumper thing before. Yeah, it's not burning you like that, but it burns like a little bit and then it literally goes away. It's something to worry about. And then my last favorite lip product 2022 is the Patrick Ta, what is this actually called? Plumping gloss. So I'm pretty sure last year or the year before I talked about the other Patrick Ta gloss, which I really liked. They were super glittery and they were kind of flat. So this is a new gloss he came out with. The formulation is perfect, but this applicator, this humongous doe foot applicator that's like the Too Faced concealer, is so fun to put lip gloss on with. So it has a hole in the center which has the lip gloss in it, and so you don't need to keep dipping. It also smells like bubblegum and tastes like bubblegum. So if that's intrigues you, it looks amazing. The high shine on this is fantastic. It gives you like, I mean, this used to be not clear, but it used to be more of a pinky white. It has glitter in it now because I use it with my ice mix with other glosses. Perfect gloss to like take with you on the go, because even if your lip liner is all gone, this, I have this in the shade Pouty, but I also have another shade, Double CC's, which is also a really good shade. Just to let you know. But Monday's Not Coming, back to the book. Whirlwind, I don't think I've ever been that panicked in my entire life. But looking back, surprised, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I gave it a very solid 5. It was it was a 5 because the way it just hurt my brain, it was definitely giving 5. And then at number 10, now we're in top 10, we have first off A Vanishing Half, which did not come out this year, but I read it this year. A lot of these books did not come out this year, but some did. Some did. I'm not breaking too many rules here, which I also gave a 5. Intense. A salad book, again, I don't read that often, but I have never read to a couple books this year. I have not read anything like them. So well written. Brit Bennett is such a good writer. The way she makes you feel these stories, yet it's kind of like, so you're feeling it with them, but I'm also able to like kind of look at it from an outsider point of view, because I'm just sitting there kind of yelling at the characters and I'm like, they can't hear me obviously, but I'm sitting there able to yell but also able to feel with them. Because that, ooh, that passing story, ooh, her daughter, her daughter, you should read that, because that's been on like a couple like best book lists for like a couple years now. That is very well deserved, and if you have not had the chance to read The Vanishing Half, you really should. So at number 9, I have You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty, which I'm sure everyone read this year, which I gave a 4/4.5. This book as a story of grief was phenomenal. Working through grief, how grief presents differently, how it like manifests differently, how you like take control of it differently. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really well written in that part. I know the part that most people talked about was like the whole like, I don't want to call that a love triangle, because I don't think that's what that was. I think man A thought he owned woman A when he didn't. Like, let's just go there. Was it the greatest thing in the world to like sleep with his dad and have him find out via town gossip and not you telling him? No, that's not the greatest thing in the world. But sue her then, if it's such an absolute problem. Not the greatest thing in the world. However, the reaction, she was right to not tell him. She was right to not interact. She was right to not sleep with him. She was right. She dodged a bullet. Nazir decided that because he chose to take her on vacation and bring her on vacation, that meant that she had sort of signed away her rights or her own free will to him, which a lot of men do think, and kind of expected something because of it. His own error. His own error. No one made you think that. No one forced you to believe that. You made that error out of your own volition. So he's a bit of a fool, but I can give him like room with that. With not really room, but like, it's not understandable, but like fine. And like sort of expectations of stuff. You shouldn't expect things like that, but fine, I'll leave it alone. Because that is a sign of what happened next. This is an escalation of what happened next. When he found out that this woman who did not sign up to date you, is not dating you, is not married to you, where he got that from, I literally do not know. Finding out that she slept with your dad, you know, not me, yeah, she's a grown woman, and going and destroying or attempting to destroy her last connection to her dead husband, she dodged a bullet with you. I think she even knew that. And the fact when she confronted him about it and was like, you know, I don't forget what she said, but she was like, you know what I had in there, because she told him and he like got sad. There is no way you didn't remember that. The reason you went there to destroy it is because of that. Be so for real with me right now. He won't ever. He can cry about it. I'm on her side. I support women's rights and I support women's wrongs. And was it ever the only wrong thing I think she did was not telling him before it got to town gossip. But that town and most towns, she never had a chance to get it before it became town gossip. She never had an opportunity to get it, to stop it before it even spread. So leave it alone. You don't own her. But beside that, I know that's the most part of the book that most people talked about, but I think this story as a tale of grief and like grieving and what that means, I thought that was really well done. And I liked that part of the book. I liked this part of the book too, but I really liked that part of the book as well. Okay, at number 8, we have Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding, which I gave a, oh wait, did I say what I gave? I gave You Made a Fool Out of Death with Your Beauty a 4/4.5. I gave Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding. I gave it an absolute 5. One of my favorite, like, just like feel, not like, well, like feel good reads of the year. I thought it was an adorable, like beautiful romance that was like, it was funny, but it was also very, very real. I thought the premise was bizarre. I'm like, not bizarre in a bad way, but I was like, what the what on earth? You're already married, but like if you're not, no, I did not like that because I don't like dating shows like that. Everything makes me nervous on those. But I thought it was cute. I thought it was really well written. I thought, like, I really like Devon. She's one of my favorite characters of this whole year. I really think she's funny, and I think she's very similar to me in like a lot of ways. But I've had literally nothing negative to say about this book. It was an enjoyable read. It was a comfortable read. It was like, if that's what you're looking for, like something just to put a smile on your face. Now, real shit happens, but something to just put a smile on your face. I think this is a good read for you. The cover is also really cute. It's kind of adorable. But yeah, I have no negative thoughts. I really enjoyed my time reading it. I was having fun. I was smiling, kicking my feet. It was adorable. Then at number 7, I have The Kiss Quotient, which I read twice this year. I gave it a 5. I love The Kiss Quotient. I love The Kiss Quotient. I see every single problem with The Kiss Quotient and I just ignored it. My ratings are out of feelings, not structure. Sue me. So Michael, who is, I think, maybe not my least favorite love interest out of the whole trilogy, but not my favorite, he definitely does teeter into possession you can read about, but red flag in real life. But that's with most romance books. You're reading something, not actually most, just only some. You're reading something where you're like, in real life, no. Like in real life, absolutely not. In real life, red flag. I liked his interest in fashion, and we didn't really get to see his interest or her interest outside of each other that much in the book, which was kind of like a good criticism of it. Like fair criticism and good criticism of it. I just loved what I was eating it up the whole time. Compared to other books with autistic main characters, especially the book I'm talking about later, I think it took, I don't know if traditional path is the right word, but she like thinks something is wrong with her. And everyone around her is like, you're bizarre, like something is wrong with you. And like, she's like, I need to fix that. I need to fix that. Instead of society going and fucking themselves and fixing themselves, which is I don't know if traditional is the right word, but a kind of traditional way to think about that. And if you ignore that, great book. If you ignore her trying to be like, and her and Michael trying to be like, I can fix you. If you ignore that feeling, you can enjoy the book. So just suspend your reality a little bit. But I think it's a good book, but out of the 3, I'll tell you which one I think you should definitely read out of the 3. But I thought all 3 were solid. And I like this book. I see the problems. I see them. I see them. I do. And at number 6, we have Honey and Spice. Honey and Spice, which I gave a 4.5. Excellent, gooey, corny, a perfect amount of corny. The perfect amount of corny. Because what is a romance book without it being corny, you guys? Get over yourselves. Get over yourselves. No good romance book is completely devoid of corniness. Excellent. Romantic, felt warm. It felt like a hot chocolate as I was reading the book, because I only drink hot chocolate. I don't like coffee. Felt like I was drinking a peppermint, to be specific, hot chocolate, because it had a little bit of that. I thought it was well done. I liked the like college premise, like setting of it, and how she had like a radio show. She was a little bit famous. This guy was like well known, stuff like that. Hated how she had to interact with that other man. Was his name Zach? He feels like a Zach. Hated that. Loved literally everything else about the book. It was adorable. If you have not read it, you really, really, really should. If you like classic, romantic, corny, just gooey romance, you should read it. I really had a lot of fun, and that's at my number 6. And now we're into top 5. This was kind of hard. I won't lie, this was a little bit difficult, but I did it. I ended up able to do it. So at number 5, I read Parable of the Sower this year, which I gave a 4.5. I think anybody who's currently alive and can read this book should read this book, because she wrote this in the 90s. She wrote this in the 90s. And that's also why I talk about like Gen Z. It's really important for us to go and learn like American history of at least the past like century, like to learn, like if you can start from like the 1960s, like learning what was going on in this country, like the 70s, 80s, 90s, even like when you were a kid in the 2000s, because the way society operates right now did not come out of nowhere. All these things that we discourse, they done. You can find out more information and figure out where it all came, like where did this all come from? The past. I think this is a fantastic book, really interesting read. I didn't know, because I heard about this book for years, and I like Octavia Butler, I really like her books, but I never read it, and I didn't know what to expect, and I was not expecting that, but I wasn't. It was like yikes, but an intriguing yikes, a little too close to home yikes, a little like looking into the future yikes. Well written. It's Octavia Butler, so like duh, but I found it intriguing and I gave it a 4.5, and I liked reading it. I'm saying that for every single book, but I don't read books that I don't like. I like the premise. Fantastic. Okay, number 4. At number 4, we have The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School, which is a book. I saw the book in a TikTok, I'm pretty sure, and I was like, that sounds interesting, let me order it. I gave this a 5. Excellent read, phenomenal, excellent. A little bit of PTSD, but amazing. Very, very cute. It felt like, because it's a YA book. Sorry, it's Catholic high school, so YA. It felt like a classic in the sense of like it is such a common experience. Like obviously like Catholic school damages a lot of people, but it could have been written almost too common, if that makes sense. Like I believe this book was written, I should have looked this up, like the author, like what their life was like, but written for, I feel like this book was written for people who either experienced it themselves or saw others really close to them experience something like this, rather than people who are removed from that environment. It felt very like you could still read it even if you had absolutely no connection to anything the characters are going through, obviously, because you should be able to read books about people you don't relate to, but I won't get into that right now. But it felt like it was written with extra care in mind for people who experienced this or saw others close to them experience something similar. It felt very like, here's an introduction to heal, sort of in a way. Here's a way to go back to perhaps a certain environment in a more like comforting way, because I mean, I'm not gonna speak for everyone who went to Catholic school, but a lot of it is just looking back and being like, dark cloud. Just dark cloud. So like a way to look back at that experience from a sort of completely different perspective, because it's a book, it's not you, but finding a way to look back at it and actually think about what was going on and not just think dark cloud, if that makes sense. But I gave it a 5. I thought it was absolutely adorable, well written. Fuck her dad. Anyways, at number 3, at number 3, I didn't spray my face. I have no new sprays. Actually, that's not true. I didn't bring it, but the Charlotte Tilbury setting spray is a really good setting spray. TikTok is not lying. I thought they were. I bought the One Size setting spray, but I have yet to use it, so I'll update you guys later if that's as good as TikTok says. But the Charlotte Tilbury one is as good as TikTok says. It is. They're actually not lying. They're not. But at number 3, I have Pet. I finally read Pet this year. This was excellent. I love short books. I love a good short book. Because people think, oh, you don't want to read a book that's long. And it's like, I actually don't. But it's more about utilizing the page length appropriately. If your book doesn't need to be 450 pages, don't make it 450 pages. If it can be 300, make it 300. You can write a 300-page book that is phenomenal front to back. You don't have to make it longer. I feel like sometimes it's just this urge to make it longer and you're losing me. Cut it out. Cut it out. I really don't like that. But I love Pet. This was like the top 5 that I talked about. Excellent books. This top 3 you should just purchase. You should just purchase the top 3 because these books, I'd heard of Pet for a while, obviously, and I heard it was good, so I believed that, obviously, but woof, what a tale, what a lesson about the demons that exist amongst us and how they present and how adults perpetuate, as like, I'm like growing up, how adults like perpetuate and encourage and damn near nurture the demons that exist in our society. Like, it was so well written, and the little like what happened in it, chef's kiss, not for what actually happened, but for like framing it in that way and showing just exactly how these demons are able to grow and how these demons are able to hurt people because of the people around them who let them. Fantastic read, to the point, plot every second. Plot it every second. I really enjoyed it. That's my number 3. Okay, now we're at number 2, my second favorite book of this whole year. Oh, I'm surprised. The reason I'm surprised, okay, I'm gonna tell you why I'm surprised. But my favorite book of this whole year, no, I'm not there yet. My second favorite book of this whole year was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I gave it a 5. I gave it an astounding 5. I don't think about my 5 is a feeling. For me, a 5, giving it 5 stars is a feeling. If I don't get the feeling of a 5, and I might love the book, like adore the book, but it doesn't give me the 5 feeling. These top 3, undeniable 5s. Undeniable. I would actually get really angry at you. But I won't, because I'm an adult and these are books, if you weren't to give them a 5. I was terrified. I was so nervous to read it. Book talk be wrong. Often. Quite often. But I saw 4 black women on TikTok say this book was good, and I need 3 cosigns from people whose opinions I value to get me to read a book, a book talk book. Get me to read a book heavily recommended by Book Talk, and to get me to read a book with non-white people with white people as leads. I need a couple of, at least 3 cosigns. So this book had 4. So I was like, okay, I will pick it up. I will read it. I'm incredibly happy that I did. The book was fantastic. First of all, Nora is so queenie. Nora is a legend of walking amongst the earth. I love Nora. Again, one of my favorite characters of this year. I do not remember the guy's name. Sumi. I don't remember his name. He was an ass, but in kind of a charming way. But in my opinion, Nora did asshole with a heart of gold much better than him. She did the, you know, I'm cold. People think I'm cold. People think I'm bitter, blah, 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 blah. But she had a heart of gold. She did that archetype better than him. She was selling it better than him. And I really liked the book. I was so nervous. They weren't wrong. They were not wrong. The book is fantastic. The book is fantastic. And it was longer. It was long, so I was like, oh, okay. At a point, I was like, we could cut 30 pages of this out. But then in those 30 pages, I was like, oh, actually, never mind. I kind of needed these. You kind of needed these 30 pages. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to like it that much, and I was genuinely surprised that I did. But Emily Henry did a really good job. I might read another one of her books because I was like, that was pretty good, but I don't want to if that's the best one. But Nora, I love grumpy women. Write more grumpy sunshine when the woman is the grumpy one. We don't, and not everyday smiles, not everyday happy. When it's not real, when we're not smiling happy in here, not every day. Put on a fake front. Not every day. Loved her. Now we are at my two, because it's a tie, and I will not be picking. My two favorite books of this year. So I will not pick. Is a tie number one is a cop-out? Yes, it is. And I'm not picking. So my first favorite book of this year was The Heart Principle, which is the third book in the like Kiss, I think it's the Kiss Quotient series. I forget what the actual series is called, but it's the third book. I cannot talk about how much I love this book because I'm gonna have to start getting up and I'm gonna start like cutting my sentences off short and like not making any coherent sense. All this talk about the Kiss Quotient, which I love the Kiss Quotient, but let's talk about where the actual meat lays. Let's actually talk about where the actual like plentiful, heartful meal actually is. It's this book. I'm saving this book to reread, I think over spring break, because I want to be in a clear non-school mindset, because I adored it when I read it when I was like still taking, when I was in classes. I know it's gonna be spectacular to read in like a free brain. It's gonna be amazing. Do I like Quan more than Michael? Yes. Yes, I think he's more interesting. I think he's more interesting, and in my head he looks better, but I think he's more interesting. But Anna and Stella, I love both, but I really like the way Anna's story was told more. The way her struggles were written made her not appear more like she's much more real. Like her character is a character allowed to be raw in every single aspect, especially when we get into like the grief. A lot of books I read this year had a lot like grief in them. Was allowed to be more raw and about, and it's not to say Stella was not raw or real in like her own way, but I don't think that book gave her enough chances to show any sort of like rawness outside of her like thing that she's trying to work on or change or fix with Michael. And that might be because like Stella has like a high career or whatever, and she's doing well and she has money and stuff, but that doesn't mean that she still doesn't have issues in other areas outside of what she's working on with Michael. That doesn't mean she doesn't have other shit going on. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It doesn't mean everything else is perfect besides that one thing, and I would have liked Stella to get an opportunity to share those. Maybe that was not the author's like goal or intention, but I feel like Anna was allowed to be more dimensional than her, and I really loved reading about it. The scene in the therapist's office where she's like, here are some books I think you would enjoy, and I think you're this, and her talking about how she was just like telling the therapist like things she thought the therapist would hear. I also read like 2 days ago, I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, and she discusses that a lot as well, and I was like, because it's so like, well, I didn't do a similar thing with a therapist, but like the way of like just acting in a way, just saying things you know other people would want to hear or other people would like just for that purpose, really resonated. I loved this book. I thought it was so well done. I liked I forget if it had 2 parts or 3 parts. I forget things of books. I just remember how I feel about them. I usually think sometimes parts are kind of done haphazardly. In a lot of books that I read with parts, I thought it was done pretty just like hodgepodge thrown together. This book stuck with me. Once I read it, I kept thinking about it and I'm like, I want to reread, but I was like, I'm not in the mindset to reread. I need to be free from school. So I could have reread it this week, but I had to read like 2 other books for my book club. But this book, I'm so sick of y'all. Everybody talks about the Kiss Quotient, which is fair. I like the book. There is no way you guys read all 3 books and the Kiss Quotient is the one you guys are talking about. There's no way. Maybe you didn't. And that if you didn't read all 3, then fine. there's no way you read this. That's why I'm upset at you guys a little bit, because this is where the meat lies. This book, it's reading it, you're like, this is like a different experience. And I loved The Kiss Quotient. Reading this is like an alternate universe. It is like I am hearing things and we're seeing characters in ways we had not seen in the first two books, like even alluded to seeing them, the way they're written, the way they're allowed to be exposed, ripped open. And I think I read the author's acknowledgements or note at the end, and she I think had released the first two like one after the other, but take a longer break between the second book and this book because of COVID, but also I think she lost someone close to her. Wow. And she like wrote that into how Anna was experiencing grief in this book. It was beautifully done. It was beautifully done. If you have not read but the thing is, I would actually say if you're gonna read the whole trilogy, read it in order, because I think you should save the best for last. I do think you should save the best for last. Like, I think you should. Like, it's fantastic. Her relationship with her sister and how there was no forgiveness at the end. I hate when it's like all of a sudden it's just happy ending. No. And that, I don't want to discuss that man. I don't. But Julian, I wish you the worst. I know I probably have which another fictional character the worst, but you, I'm saving extra damage for you. I want extra things done to you. He's not a good person. He's a horrible person. And I like how they even discuss how Anna like went through like, why was I ever with him? Why do I feel like almost indebted to him? Why, when he was like, we're what kind of spoiler? Like, we're engaged, and she just like went along with it. The way she had to unpack, just the way her unpacking everything was a really like, I think a really well done writing of just like what it takes to grow, and how like getting information about yourself that you like, integral information about yourself that you have not known for your whole life, how it turns everything on its head, and now you're forced to do all the things she had to do. Hers was a little bit more like, Julian should never have existed, but that's beside the point. Okay, and then my other favorite book of this year was Confessions of an Alleged Good Girl. I loved this book. This is another book that I love the cover, and I was like, I really hope the actual book matches the cover, and it did. Amazing plot, amazing lessons, adorable, but in a well-written, but like extraordinarily well-written. I had very similar thoughts to The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. It just felt so real and felt so like there was no like outsider looking in. Well, probably because I do relate to the main character, but like it felt like I was very much there. But it also felt like, even if you've never experienced the whole like church girl thing, which I really haven't, but the book was almost welcoming into that, because in this society, even if you're not religious, you probably have some sort of religious trauma. Like, this society is kind of crazy, but the book was almost welcoming. And if you can find relation to what she's going through in any way, if you felt any shame about anything related to yourself, you can kind of come into the book and understand her perspective and see what she's going through. I like these two. I like this book and The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School because of the way it allows, or like not allow, maybe forces you to reflect if you have any sort of like, it doesn't, you don't have to have the exact same sort of like experience as the characters, but if you're able to relate in any way, how it sort of takes you through a different version of the healing process, and is like, we want you to look at your life from an alternate, from a book perspective. Look at this like fictional like teenager and see what she's going through, and kind of like, because sometimes you'll be really hard on yourselves and look back at your past and almost either exaggerate things, downplay things, and when you're reading it as a character, you're like less likely to do that. But when you do relate to what they're going through, you're more likely to be like, to not do that. So you might even help yourself, because if you're looking back at your own life and you're like underselling yourself, overselling certain things, exaggerating and wanting to, especially what I talked about in what video? Like healing your inner child, how you can't talk meanly, Bella, Sex Lives with College Girls, how you shouldn't talk badly about your younger self. I think books like these two help, really help you with that, in terms of like looking back at your younger self, because you don't need to self-insert into every book, but if you do relate with what the two of them are going through, being able to look at it and be less harsh on yourself. So when you're reading about a teenager going through something kind of similar, you're like, wow, you were so young. You like didn't need to go through that. This was an external factor. This should never have happened to you, etc., etc. I really like those two books for that reason. But Confession of an Alleged Good Girl just had an extra edge to it. Had an extra oomph to it. It was so cute. It was so cute. It was well written, and it was really like bouncy. I mean, there was some bad shit that happened, but it was really, my chair will not stop squeaking, sorry. It was really bouncy. It was a good read. I think if you know any like young girl, like a teenager, give them this book. Give them this book. If there's a couple of books that I wish, my two favorite are books that I wish desperately I had read at like 15, 16. You should give them this book. If you know them, I have a perfect present for you. I have a perfect present for you because the cover is beautiful. I have had the hardcover and I hate hardcovers. I hate hardcovers. You should read them. You should really read them. They're fantastic. They're fantastic. So anyway, that is it. Those are all the books I read in 2022 ranked, and some of my favorite products. I didn't do as much makeup stuff this year, but I did get a favorite foundation. I will probably never ever let this foundation go, ever. I don't think I'll ever let it go because it is that good, and I got a new all-time favorite powder because I've been using the Laura Mercier Honey since forever. Also, the Huda Beauty powder also did not come out this year, but I have been using it slightly more this year. It's a very like powder. I tend to only wear it when I'm doing like eyeshadow and I need my base to look like I don't want to see flaws. With this type of makeup, it's like something like regular looking skin will like obviously peek through, but if I have like a super dramatic eye look, like I want to look, the Huda Beauty powder will get you there. You won't even have a choice. Even if you use the tiniest bit of that powder, it's gonna look blurred. I consider it my kind of like, what is that word? Like high ammunition powder. I don't need to bring it out every single time, but when it's go time, the Huda Beauty will eventually come out. But I don't really have that many like makeup favorites of this year, which is kind of sad, but maybe next year we'll see some new one. I didn't even order like eyeshadow like that this year. That's what's crazy. I didn't even order eyeshadow like that this year. So that has been my books / makeup faves of this year. Tell me, I want to know your top 3, if you can pick your top 3 reads of this year, because I want to add some more to my TBR, which I ignore, but I want to have them there in case I get in a slump and need to just pick books to read. So let me know what your top 3 favorite books of the year were, and I hope you guys have a really happy new year. I'll see you in the new year. Please stay safe, wear your mask, please get your booster if you can, and yeah, have a happy new year, and I will see you guys next year. Bye bye.